Sandy and Nora's podcast.
Hey, Nora.
Hey, Sandy.
How are you doing?
I'm okay. I've discovered just how ridiculous cell phone services can be in this country in the last week. And
yeah, because called you last week to record the podcast and your phone was not working. That was difficult.
yeah, well, they disconnected it. Videotron, my phone company, just disconnected it.
Is unreal. Like, they just disconnected it. You know, it's so weird, like how dependent we are on our phones, but also at the same time nobody calls each other anymore. Very strange reality we live in.
Yeah.
And that we can be that dependent on our phones, and a company can just disconnect your phone without you knowing, but disconnects your ability to interact with the Canadian government. That's pretty bad. And not just in the way of calling them, but through two-factor authentication, getting into any of your accounts. It disconnects your ability to bank. How did you deal with that?
Well, the whole thing is related to the fact that Videotron many years ago, and without, any consent, they divided bills to be between the kinds of services you had with Videotron. So, I mean, I have internet and I have cell phones. So they took my one bill, which was the combined internet and cell phone, and they divided it into two bills with two separate account numbers. And for some reason in my online banking, it's always caused problems. And I've tried to fix it 6 or 7 times over the years. And every time I fix it, and then after a couple of months, it goes back to being a problem. And I cannot tell what the blockage is. It's probably me, but whatever, this is it. So for many months, I think since May, I've been paying both bills to my internet and not to my cell phone, right? It's the same company. It's the same goddamn company. And so you called and you're like, yeah, that was weird. I've never heard this message before. And I was like, whatever. And the next day I went for an appointment, which I have my monthly appointments for my injections. And they were like, sorry, we tried to call you yesterday and the day before, and we couldn't reach you. We couldn't leave you a voicemail. And our nurse has quit, so we can't give you this injection. I was just
there's 5 levels of what the hell in that story.
Yeah. Well, this is private medicine, right? So the pharmacy is under no obligation to find me a replacement nurse. They were like, good luck, go online to find a new appointment. It's like, I know about online. Thank you. You can't call another pharmacy in the neighborhood to see if, nope. Okay. So then I have to go door to door trying to find a nurse in the neighborhood to give me this injection, which I did because luckily the average age of my neighborhood is about 70. So, there's lots of benefits to that. And in the midst of all of this, I call Videotron. I'm like, what the hell? And they're like, okay, well, you just have to pay this balance. I was like, you can see I paid the balance to the wrong account. Just shift the money. We can't do that. So I had to pay an extra amount of money to the cell phone bill, even though I was in plus $300 in my internet bill. And then I'm like, have you updated the system to allow us to just put these bills together? They're like, yes, but we can't do that for you because you have no cell phone service right now. You've been cut off. So you got to call back next week when this is all fixed, and then we'll put your bills back together. It's like, I never asked for them to be separated in the first place. What on earth is this? But also, you have my money. You have more than enough to cover the hole in this account from my other account. You cannot can't do this. You got to pay extra. Fine. Pay extra, settle everything, take off to the woods for a couple of days. Now, I'm thinking I have no cell phone service because I'm in the woods, because I know that this is a place that does not have cell phone service usually. As I come back into the city 3 days later, they never restored my cell phone service.
Oh my God. What was the reason this time?
Called them back, and the reason was, that's weird. It should have been. So wow. I was like, I want to talk to whoever is allowed to give me money for this because I want reimbursement for having no cell phone for the last however many days. And I got $15. So there you are. This is what happens when there's no competition in a market, when the cell phone agencies all act with 100% impunity. And I hate Videotron. I hate Rogers Moore. I hate Bell. I hate TELUS. What am I supposed to do? Anyway, there you go. That's how I'm doing.
Yeah, and then Oh gosh. I mean, as you were saying that, I was thinking two things. One was I told a story a few weeks ago about how when I was coming back from Italy, my flight was delayed like 4 hours. Anyway, you know how you're supposed to get compensation? Did the whole thing of trying to get compensation, and I've been approved for $60.
What?
I know. So, but anyway, I was flying out of the European Union, so I'm going to try to escalate, and I'll let you know how that goes. But again, you know, when you've got a monopoly, I mean, the WestJet flight attendant strike just ended today or yesterday, as we're recording this, and like, you know, you've got these monopolies. It really degrades how these services are run. The other thing that I was thinking about was just as you were talking about how this messes up things with your bank. Save a little ire for your bank too, because Nora, like, at this point, with all the different projects I've run and all of the different organizations I've been a part of, I have banked with all the banks, okay? All of them, every single one. And I cannot tell you how much they all suck. Every single one sucks. Like, you think that like whatever, friggin' technological issue you have with Scotiabank is like unique to Scotiabank. It's not. It's also a problem at the National Bank of Canada. It's also a problem at Alternative Savings. It's also a problem with Van City. It's also a problem with RBC. It's also a problem with Pick a Bank, okay? Because they all have the same issues that none of them need to fix because they know you're coming back. You know you're coming back. You only have so many options, and even the options that are like alternative options are often just either related to another big option, like EQ Bank was just bought out by President's Choice. Anyway, they all suck. So save a little frustration for your bank.
You know what? It's so funny. Sometimes I get these reminders that we are very similar because I too have banked with every financial institution in this country. And you're so right. You are so right. Because in the midst of all of this, I mean, okay, look, everybody should have their savings in a credit union. The thing, though, is that you have to be prepared for frustration because the credit unions, as you say, also have the same problems. I have to say my own credit union, Tandia, which I love, and I've never had any problems with them. And I still get phone calls from workers at the credit union asking me if I want to do certain things. And it's amazing. They prompt me for everything. They just merged with Alterna, which, of course, I voted against.
Of course.
And so the same week that I had the cell phone problem, I also had Alterna shut me out of all of my union banking and my organizational banking for the Canadian Association of Labour Media at Alterna. And it was like,
excellent.
Oh, why am I also being shut out of this? And it's like, oh, just because we are updating things, you need to refill out these forms. And they were all opening account forms. It was like, we've been with you for a decade. Surely you could give me a form that is pre-filled out. You know what the name of my organization is. You know what we do. You know who the signing authorities are. I have to go through this again. He's like, yes, it's mandated, blah, blah, blah. So in going through that process, which is, I mean, this is another thing that's not really being talked about very much because of the rising attention to financial fraud and I don't know, internet fraud or whatever, we are being asked for more and more and more and more personal information to access our money within these financial institutions.
Yes.
And I think that this is such a crisis because, you know, when I'm filling out this information, like, who's your board of directors? I fill out the board of directors information. They want to know addresses. They want to know what everyone does, who's their employer. And of course, all of this is to make sure that everyone is personally liable for whatever happens with this account. And it's like, I get the logic of it, but it's like, FinTrack needs to be going after the people who are not going to be caught because their board of directors have their jobs listed oddly. Like, there's a level of financial fraud that is so far beyond the heads of most Canadians that it's like, sorry, you're putting us through the ringer under the defense that you're going after like huge amounts of fraud. Like, go shut down the casinos if you're really concerned about fraud. Like, attack Bitcoin wherever you see Bitcoin in Canada if you really want to go after fraud. You're making me give all this personal information. And what I'm most concerned about is I think that we're moving towards a very American system where, I don't know if you know this, but if you're an American and you live abroad and you're on a board of directors, you have to submit the audited financial statements of the not-for-profits that you are a director of to the IRS when you do your taxes.
What? No, I did not know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That, okay.
Like, it's it's kind of crazy. And you think of all of the different like groups and not-for-profits or OBNLs, as we say in Quebec, that one person might be involved in. Like, for me, imagining that I have to submit to CRA all of the audited financial statements of all of the organizations that I'm on the board of. Oh my God, that starts to become, I mean, under, again, the guise of financial management, good practices and all this stuff. It's actually like hyper surveillance, not just of me individually, but then of all of the organizations that I might be involved in. And I think that is very, very scary. And so I don't like any of this stuff. But we're not talking about this week.
No, we're not.
But I don't know how many people know that.
Wow. Okay, so lots of frustrations between the two of us, but we also have gratitude, as we always do. Nora, do we have some folks to thank this week?
Yes. Thank you so much to everybody, as always, who likes the podcast, shares the podcast, tells their friends and family to listen to the podcast, and to everybody that's donated as well. We couldn't do this without your help. And so thank you this week to Ian and Carrie. You folks are amazing.
Thank you so much. And just one more thing that I just have to say, that it's not political. It's not about, well, it's a little bit political, but it's not about like the government or banking or any of that. I saw The Odyssey. I got to say, I saw The Odyssey. And it sucked, man. It really sucked. It really, really sucked. And I don't really get, I don't know. I mean, I like Christopher Nolan. I liked Memento. I like The Dark Knight. I know you don't like movies, so I'm like talking to the air here, but I'm talking to you, dear listener. Okay, can I tell you like two reasons why I really, really hated it?
Sure.
Okay. One, three reasons. Three reasons why. One is that Odysseus is not like a trickster in this, and he's supposed to be a trickster. That's reason number one. Reason number two was the dialogue was so bad. In the first 10 minutes, I mean, really interestingly, they decided to use an American accent for this film.
Oh, that's weird. I mean,
it is
okay.
Weird. It is weird.
Yeah.
It's like, I thought in the first 10 minutes, I was like, that's a political decision. You know, they have all of these like A-list actors, including Tom Holland and Robert Pattinson and Charlize Theron and Lupita Nyong'o. Like, they had a smattering of accents to choose from, and they chose American. So I was like, that's a interesting choice. And then, like, in the first 10 minutes, one of the main characters starts yelling out, "Dad, Dad, where's Dad?" And I was like, oh, it's not even father. They're using dad. Like, this is like really jolting me out of the frame period, the time period that I'm supposed to be in. Like, the fact that I'm thinking about the dialogue in this way. So that's number two. And then number three, with trying not to do spoilers here, at the climax of the film, you know, like there's like this battle that's taking place. It's like just about to, you're getting close to the end, and there's like people are being slaughtered. It's a big battle. And one of the main characters, who should probably just be named Useless, comes down like to see this battle, and he yells out, "What happened?"
What?
And I kid you not, like a good third of the theater just started laughing. Because what do you mean what happened? people are being stabbed with swords. Like, what? Are you confused, bro? Like, what is going on? Like, I just thought, what a weird film. And so all of the love that it's getting, like, I don't understand. I'm like, can someone please explain this to me? Is it just that you all just love Christopher Nolan? Anyway, that is my review. That's the last thing before we get into our real topic for today. American accents, not great for like a period fiction.
No, it really isn't. It really isn't. And I mean, obviously, they're not all going to be speaking ancient Greek, although that would be interesting. But I mean, it's just American English is just too new. Like British English is also new, obviously, but like American English is way too new.
Yeah. It didn't work. It didn't work for me.
No. Okay. Well, I'll add that to my pile of still won't watch it. But I did see the translator of the version of the Iliad that the movie was based on completely panned the movie as well. So,
the version of the Odyssey that the movie is based on. Yes.
Oh, sorry, the Odyssey. Yes.
Yeah, she's been talking about how poorly written it was too, and I felt vindicated after listening to her rant about it. I was like, yeah, that's what I thought.
Okay, well, there you go. The once in a while movie criticism that you get from this podcast. But let's talk about another Odyssey.
Ooh.
The Odyssey of Mark Carney.
What a guy. So how's it going with Mark Carney? I mean, he had, one of the most impactful speeches that came from a Canadian prime minister in recent memory that had like such a shock on the world of how things were really, really shifting in this world order, and how Canada was potentially going to be leading this revolution of middle powers. How is it going? How is he standing in opposition to this fascist turn of being led by the United States?
Well, I think that Carney is riding a very sweet spot in Canadian politics right now, where he can do no wrong, and he knows that. Like politics is always a balance of forces, right? There's no one thing that is going to force a person to be successful or a party to be successful. It's not like through the sheer will of an amazing leader that someone's successful. It's a balance of forces. Because if you have a weak conservative party, that's going to mean certain things. If you have a strong conservative party, that's going to mean certain things, right? So on the and we'll talk as well about the other parties too, but the Conservatives, of course, the biggest opposition. On the balance of forces, Carney is untouchable. And, we made reference to this in previous episodes, but it seems like the mainstream media is finally waking up to this story about how unelectable Pierre Poilievre is, which, I mean, I'm irritated that it's taken the mainstream a year and 4 months to come up with this realization, because it's been clear as day to literally anyone with half a brain following politics since he lost his election in April 2025. But what I find is so fascinating is that this, like, the veritable collapse of the Conservative Party, which was always shaky. Like, they never, when I was covering the Conservative Convention in 2024, the delegates that I talked to were not 100% all in, head over heels for Poilievre. Every delegate that I talked to felt that he was the guy that seemed to be able to bring together the party across really deep divides and go up against someone like Justin Trudeau. But it was very much like, again, balance of forces at that time may have provided a path forward to victory for Poilievre. And since that whole context has shifted, here you have Mark Carney. I think I saw it today enjoying a 38-point split between him and Poilievre as the second most popular party leader. A level of popularity that's really, really not common in Canadian politics. And I think that has allowed Carney to really do whatever he wants, while kind of throwing Canada into the same ocean current as other Western democracies that see the military industry as our saving grace when we look at the decline of American hegemony, a collapse of certain traditional industries that have been collapsing for many, many years and are continuing to collapse. Carney is like, he checks all of the boxes for exactly what needs to be done in this moment to save capitalism in the way that it operates in Canada. And so it means that he's virtually untouchable. And I think that creates a very interesting political dynamic and moment for us right now that will come to an end. He will fall off the cliff at some point, but not anytime soon. I think that Carney is going to have a solid year and a half, 2 more years of being able to govern like this while those balance of forces continue to regroup.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of what we're seeing too is like the consequence of the Liberal Party's consistent resistance to be about anything real, right? It's like they are whatever they have to be to maintain power. And what they couldn't be that got us to this era is they couldn't be Justin Trudeau. They couldn't be related to an idea that is represented by Justin Trudeau. So I mean, because they're not attached to any sort of principles, that doesn't matter. They're like, okay, so we get Mark Carney in, who really is pushing a conservative agenda that makes the Conservatives like impotent in this moment, right? Like they're all for the military, they're all for spending on policing, they're all for oil and gas, they're all for AI, like in this big way, and all of those things are like make the liberal agenda right now really fall in line quite nicely with what's going on in the United States, no matter what Mark Carney is saying publicly. He's all about big business, right? Like, and then what? What does that mean? What does that mean for who Canada is, what becomes of the Conservative Party, and how Canada acts in this particular timeline in the state of world politics? Well, it means that, you know, there is no discussion or a debate in the Liberal Party on such things as supporting a genocide, continuing to pour more and more money into the war machine, and the decimation that we're seeing of our social programs across the country. I mean, all this stuff that's going on in healthcare, my goodness, it means that the Liberal Party tacitly leans into the racism that's driving the discussion around immigration in our country. It means that that the Liberal Party continues to ignore some of the really dangerous stuff that's going on with respect to hateful organizations and the organizing that they are doing, both in Canada and the U.S. and cross-border. Like it continues this world that, as we've argued on this podcast in the past, that makes fascism possible. But it is really interesting that it's having this impact on the Conservative Party and like their ability to have any sort of footing at all. And then, of course, even more fringe parties that we've seen in the past, like Maxime Bernier's.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to kind of pay attention to who is doing what, which major players in the Conservative Party are doing what, as these forces continue to kind of, you know, swirl and develop or collapse. So you've got the federal apparatus, and that is, you know, more or less around Pierre Poilievre. But then you also have provincial instances that are not solid. I mean, Danielle Smith, it would be very hard to unseat her in the current moment, but of course the referendum might actually take her down. I think that there's a chance of that, because I think that most Albertans do see the referendum for what it really is, which is just an excuse to distract from how crazy her government is. Doug Ford has had a very difficult couple of months. Many people are suggesting that he might be finished. I agree with that. I think that the sun is probably setting on his political career. Though, again, when you look at the balance of forces in Ontario, there's no one that's necessarily ready to kind of jump into the spot of premier yet. And I will say, I think we have to talk about the NDP. We will talk about the NDP. I really want to focus on the Conservatives right now, but before the episode's done, we will talk about the NDP. And then you look at major players. And so who in the Conservative Party is positioning themselves to do what? And there have been a couple of people surfacing over the last couple of weeks. Jason Kenney is someone whose name gets brought up a lot. And he, I think, is probably the most reasonable choice to be the person that takes over the federal party after Poilievre. I think that there's a lot of Conservatives that see that as being quite obvious, as Kenney is both a skilled politician. He's not far right in the same sense that a lot of other people are. He's got a lot of experience governing, blah, blah, blah. So watching every move that Jason Kenney does right now is really, really important, and seeing who rushes to support Kenney within the Conservative, apparatus, Conservative machine. Very interesting. Then you have someone like Chris Alexander, who, let's not forget, ran for the leadership of the Conservative Party many years ago. He was the barbaric cultural practices hotline guy, and he's announced that he's running for mayor of Toronto, which I think is interesting. And I think that, Chris,
wait, I'd missed this. What?
yeah. He's like
Toronto. What the hell?
Yeah, but he's very crazy in a way that is not charming. This is the era we're in right now, right? He will have no chance winning that election because, I thought that Chris Alexander, not knowing much about him when I followed the Conservative race in whatever year it was, not the last one, but the one where they elected Aaron O'Toole. No, the one that they elected. Oh my God, I'm drawing a blank. Andrew Scheer. Right, it was Bernier and Scheer. I followed that race, and that race had, several candidates. I think it was 9 candidates, and Chris Alexander was one of them. And I thought that surely this is a guy that will rise above the others because he comes from an urban-ish, suburban, 905 riding. He has lots of experience. During that campaign, though, it was clear that he's nuts. He's got nothing. He's not someone that actually can lead. What's going to be fun to watch is how Brad Squaredford positions himself around Alexander, because I think that Alexander entering the Toronto mayoral election is the bad news is mostly for Brad Bradford. So that'll be interesting. And then I saw Stockwell Day talking about this viral scandal about people rushing to the island of Ceuta. I don't know if that's how it's pronounced, Ceuta. A Spanish territory from Morocco that I'm sure lots of people are aware of. Now, I saw this pushed by Conservative channels like Canada Proud and then Stockwell Day, warning that this mass migration of people is coming for our shores, just like it's coming for Spain, blah, 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 racist, blah, blah. And I think that once again, we see that the Conservatives are absolutely unsure about what their position in Canada should be with such a Conservative Prime Minister. And so they're drawing on the far right movements of conservative, like-minded conservative instances around the English-speaking world, or maybe even the Western world, not even just English-speaking world, to try and use that to bring people back to the Conservative tent, which I don't think is going to work in Canada, but it will cause a lot of damage as they try to make it work.
Yeah, I mean, it'll work with some people because racism always works with some people, but I don't know that it's going to be the thing that works for them either. It is interesting to consider all of these particular identities, but I don't know, Nora, I don't see any of these people really making a dent, at least in the next little bit. I think that what's going on politically is in part related to the fact that we have this really, really short political memory. And so people are willing to, quote unquote, forgive the Liberals for getting us into this mess for a while because they see Mark Carney as somebody who's new. The Conservatives, they're not like their messaging right now is not providing like at least so far as I can see a real alternative to like the super right wing turn of the Liberal Party, and so they don't really have any footing there, and I think basically what's going to happen is we're going to have a repeat almost of the Trudeau years, but like closer to the right, where eventually people will see that, oh yeah, this shit isn't working either. My life is getting rougher and rougher, and things. If you run a country like a business, you'll get business leaders becoming more powerful and having more money, and people on the ground, average people, getting screwed over. Like that trajectory will continue to happen. And ultimately, even though the Liberals are not making a outward racist pitch, although they kind of are in some ways, especially in the way that they're dealing with immigration and some of the policies that they're implementing around immigration and other things like security and safety and so on. Like ultimately, it's going to end up being in the same place that we would have been in had the Conservatives won, but maybe just a little bit slower and with a nice little patina on top that makes people feel good about themselves because the party that they voted for is called Liberal, even though it is so conservative. The other thing that I think is this is kind of related to like how we ended last week's episode. The other reason I think that this is allowed to happen is it's like, okay, yeah, we have this short political history just generally out in the culture. People don't remember how this is more of the same or how the massive failures of the recent past have gotten us to this moment. But it's also because of how we discuss major issues in Canadian politics in the media. Like, I'm so sick and tired of who we decide are experts on particular issues. And like, in particular, I'm very, very frustrated that people who are organizers and activists and workers generally are not among the top people that traditional mainstream media will seek out to talk about any particular issue, whether we're talking about the climate or we're talking about safety or we're talking about the military, what have you. The media does not reach out to organizers, activists, workers to talk about these things. And in fact, these are some of the most important people to talk to on any of these issues. And it leaves us with a political discussion that is so stunted because we're talking to the people who made the policies, the people from the opposition parties whose job it is to oppose the policies, who may not have the information that organizers or workers or people who are really being affected on the ground have. And that's about it. Like, that's who we talk to. And like political pundits and people who are considered experts might be people who are like in business on these issues, who might have like a private institution that's related to these issues, and maybe some professors, maybe some academics here and there. And that's about it, which I think really, really leads to this very, very shallow and stunted conversation on so many of our most important issues right now, and allows the Liberals to get away with being the Conservatives and not having anyone really challenge that in a very effective way.
Yeah, this is like actually, I think, one of the big crises that faces Canadian media right now. And it's, first of all, it has to be said, it was not always like this. It wasn't always like this.
Yeah, it wasn't.
And not only was it not always like this, like before the neoliberal era, but like you and I were regularly commenting on stuff a decade ago in mainstream media and other people, many of our peers. And I think
even 2 decades ago.
Right.
before we were like even like as impactful as we were about a decade ago, like 2 decades ago, when we weren't all that impactful, we were commenting quite a bit,
Yeah.
and seen as having some sort of expertise, just because of the type of work that we were doing, and we did have a level of expertise.
Well, yeah, like talking about that conservative leadership race, I was on The Current talking about it with two other journalists that were analyzing the conservative leadership race, because one of the debates happened in Quebec City and I covered it for Rabble. Like it's actually unbelievable how much the screws have been turned on that. On us, on anyone that's to the left of the Liberal Party, frankly. I mean, the NDP gets some of their pundits in there. And so I don't include anyone that works for a PR agency. I mean, like, that is bullshit. And I don't include anybody who gets to do commentary whose day job is for a PR agency or some sort of weird firm. I mean, that because then they're paid and asked to just do like very straight partisan punditry, which is very boring, I think. So, if you look at, especially since October 7th, 2023, the most mainstream media have completely gotten rid of any voice that is to the left of the Liberal Party. And I've been thinking about this too, like just looking around at who's like writing an analysis from a left-wing perspective in any of the mainstream papers. Like, I actually don't think that there's a single woman between the ages of 30 and 50 that's writing in a mainstream publication regularly as a columnist, other than maybe Erica Eiffel, who's got a regular, though not super frequent, column at the Hill Times. And the Hill Times being mainstream, but ish. I mean, very mainstream in Ottawa, but not so mainstream outside of Ottawa. Other than Erica, I mean, like, I don't think that anyone else is doing that, which is absolutely insane. Like, I don't think we can make it clear how absolutely nuts that is. If you look at the history of newspapers in this country, women journalists, I mean, few and far between in the 1920s and 30s, but there were still some of them writing columns and doing analysis and this kind of thing. And here we are today. If I am missing someone, I said this online and someone said, what about Elizabeth Renzetti, who is north of 55? I mean, so her stuff's good most times. Sometimes it's weird, but she's there, yes. And she's not in this age cohort. Robin Urbach doesn't count because she's trash and was handpicked to be trash at the age of 21, and she was raised to be trash, and she sucks, and that's her job at the Globe and Mail. Otherwise, like, who is there?
Yeah,
Who is there? Marsha Lederman, who was a professor of mine. So, I mean, again, not quite the same generation, and who's also not at all left-wing.
Yeah, I think you're right. I just, like, as you were talking, just went to take a look at like the opinion pages, and it's just like, you are correct. Like, all of the names suggest that the opinion pages have been taken over by men. But the other thing is too, I remember in 2014, 2015, when there started to be more interest in getting like more diverse voices for Canadian opinion pages. And by that, I mean like people of color. And those names have disappeared as well, significantly. And it's just really interesting how like the way that the impact that the media has on politics, the interplay between politics and the media, like what are the important questions to ask, like what is happening, is really impacting like what is going on in the political sphere as well. And the joke is, right, like the joke for people who are organizers like you and I, like we know, like when we are dismissed from the media, when the media decides that, okay, you're not experts, you people are just like a fringe special interest group, which is kind of how folks will be discussed as organizers by media who want to dismiss us, like we're fringe special interest groups. The joke is that like media will like take a comment from someone like Kevin O'Leary, right? Like because he's just like rich, he must be an expert in everything. And so you get like the media asking for commentary from people just because they're like prominent and wealthy. Whereas if you're like an organizer for like anything, you have to be such an expert on what you're talking about in a way that like policymakers, politicians, certainly not billionaires or millionaires or just people who are just like well-known rich people, don't have to be. Because not only do you have to know the issue, if you're organizing on the issue, you have to know how to teach the issue, which creates a whole different level of understanding. And like organizers tend to have to be good at, teaching and public education and mass education and communicating their ideas in a quick way, in a way that's easy to understand, in making sure that they have like the financial aspects of what they're talking about, the economic aspects of what they're talking about figured out, like in order to get anybody to even listen to them, to take them seriously. So the level of understanding, complexity, and sophistication on an issue you get from talking to organizers, from people who have decided this is an issue that is so important. I'm going to figure out a way to tackle it outside of like the other stuff that I do. You're talking to someone who like obviously is going to have a level of sophistication and interest in the issue to inject a different kind of politic into it that helps us as a society come to conclusions on how to orient ourselves around important issues. Because, my gosh, that's how debate works. And unfortunately, we've just like decided for some reason that average people, like even workers, like all of these people who are working in tech, I don't want to hear from like Elon Musk. I don't want to hear from the politicians who've decided that it's really, really great to pour all of this money into AI. I want to hear from the workers who are working in these industries who keep leaking shit about how terrible this whole thing is. Like, why wouldn't we prioritize those voices being the number one voices that we're hearing from? Like, I want to hear from those people. That will inject a level of sophistication and complexity among the debates that we're having that just simply has evaporated from Canadian traditional media.
Mm-hmm. Well, the reason, of course, is because we are living in an era where the elites have more control, more money, more power than they've actually had since colonial times in this country. And that's not hyperbolic, actually. That's very, very true. Like, if it was in the interest of the for-profit companies to hear from average workers, they would put those average workers on the air. If it was in their interest in some way to provoke debate, to allow for a pressure release valve, even to put even the most staunch communist on the air to talk about communism, they would put that person on the air if it was in their interest. And because it is not in their interest, and because we have a media establishment that has been battered, that is run by cowards, like that, CBC is not technically pulled by these forces. And I was just reminded today that a guy who I went to school with, who's a comrade back then, looking for like people to put on the air because that's his job now at CBC. It's like, what happened to you, man? Like, why aren't you putting us on the air? You could do that. Like, it's because of the moment that we're in is so controlled and so constricted that we have to be sober about the fact that things have changed. And it isn't to accept the fact that things have changed. It isn't to give up because things have changed, but is to name these things clearly and continue to struggle against the fact that things have changed, to try and kick open spaces again for average people or for people who've got analysis that boosts up average opinions, average people's experiences, to actually have access to these tribunes. And I think that the other piece of this is because the working class in Canada has undergone a transformation in the last 30 years where they are far more more precarious, far more or far less holding citizenship, working jobs that are more dangerous with fewer protections than certainly ever before the post-war period, and probably again bringing us right back to the colonial period. And this working class, I mean, it is overwhelmingly comprised of people who are immigrants, who are refugees, people who have no status. It is the people who, like, you're too afraid to open your door when you order food and they've dropped it off at the door and you wait to make sure no one's there when you kind of grab your food order, so that you don't have to interact with people. It's created a completely divided society where jobs that used to be very much part of the social fabric in Canada have been 100% marginalized with the help of mainstream media. And that leaves this management and professional class to stand in as like the average Canadian, right? The average Canadian is like, is a manager, a small business owner, a Tim Hortons franchisor, a corporate farm owner, right? And this is not what average Canada looks like, but this is what we are told it looks like. And so there's very few spaces then to open up to someone like you or me or people that do similar work that we do to explain these things on the air, even if it's like absolutely true and needs to be heard and is necessary for our functioning democracy. Which brings me to, I think, what is a big question in all of this is, what of this functioning democracy? The Liberals and Conservatives hold the same role in this country and have always held the same role. It is to govern Canada at the behest of the reigning economic order, which has always been capitalism. I mean, and then, earlier imperialism, mercantilism, and whatever. So currently this is Western capitalism. And the Conservatives, when they are ready to govern, they govern in the ways that they govern, but do the same thing. And the Liberals do the same thing in the ways that they govern, pretending to Canadians that they are different. And this is, I think, something that Canadians are not wrapping their heads around, and what this means for us all. When you understand that these two parties occupy the same space using slightly different tactics and rhetoric, then you can see just how much we are in trouble in this country, because these two dominant forces, even if they pretend to joust or debate or whatever within the House of Commons or within different committees, ultimately are on the same side on the biggest questions that matter to them the most and that oppress Canadians the most. And so, I mean, here we are once again, not a whole lot of time, but I think it's very, very important. What is the role for the NDP in all of this when you have this system that is so constricted, that is so controlled by patronage, by these appointments that are all the buddies and the buddies and the buddies and the buddies of the people that have power? What is the role of social democracy or social democratic parties when we no longer live in a social democracy? And I have not seen anyone and a little bit even outside of the NDP really grappling with this and what it means for the future of that party and how this party becomes part of that balance of forces again, to actually force the Liberals to do certain things.
Yeah, as you were talking and explaining how the Conservatives and the Liberals take up the same space, I mean, this is, again, one of the reasons why it was such a poor decision for the last NDP, the last iteration of the NDP that was in the House, to have that agreement with the Liberals, because it was just like, what is your purpose? If we're just going to have two major parties and one that's like trying to be major, just becoming that, again, like the same thing as those other parties, it's like, what is the point? And it's like, right now, the challenge for us is if all of these voices are being cut out, like both in a big P politics level and what the NDP is supposed to be, and on the ground with like organizers, workers, average people, and our concerns being cut out of the mainstream, like the point should be right now is to create space for that, like to create the space for that, create the megaphone for that, uplift those voices and create the space for those debates. And it's one of the most crucial things I think that the NDP could be doing and should be doing is using the infrastructure that they have across the country to support in making that space. And it's like, a question and conundrum for me personally, as I was talking to some organizers here in the United States who were just like, you have an obligation, a responsibility to be more to be speaking more, using your social media in a world where mainstream media has been been taken over to elevate these ideas. And I'm like, I don't know if I can agree with that. Like, I feel like social media, again, is just like another apparatus of the same problems that we're talking about, because it has been so constricted and taken over by big business interests. It's like, what are you really feeding? And the people I'm talking to, like, they made a good argument. They were just like, in a world where we're being forced to be consumers, and we're being forced to just watch it, not participating makes it it's an even bigger problem. But still, I feel like social media can't be the only place that we are trying to create this space to uplift these ideas. I think that the in real life stuff is really important. I think that creating our own media and so on, like we're doing, like many other people are doing, is important. But it may also be something that looks completely new. The point is that we really do have to recognize the moment that we're in, that what is being fed to us as like our democratic system working, our media working, isn't working. Like, we need to understand that that's not working, and to create spaces for something new to grow. And I think that that's some of the most important things that organizers, the media, and any party that wants to call themselves social democrats or anything lefter than that can be doing.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking that it would be such an interesting experiment for the next month for Avi Lewis to run in Chicoutimi Fjord, which is a riding that that was made vacant when Mark Carney brilliantly appointed the local MP, who was a conservative, to the Senate, just to practice organizing in a province where the NDP has literally no game. I mean, sorry, folks in Montreal, but a riding or two ridings in Montreal is not the province of Quebec. And I'm saying this from another center of the universe in the province, which is so different from Montreal. It's hard for people to wrap their minds around in English. In French, it's very obvious. But creating those spaces is really important, but also to recognize that the party's structures, and I've written about this before, and it's just, there's not enough thinking happening on this, although I'll shout out the folks at Spring Magazine because they are thinking through this. You cannot rely on social democracy anymore in this country. It's dead. I mean, you all should be reading my goddamn books. Let's start with that. But it's dead. And so social democracy is dead, and you still keep trying to build a social democratic party. Guess what's going to happen? It's going to be a failure. Nothing you're going to do is going to be a success. And I think that it's hard for people to wrap their heads around that because you're swimming in the same context that has been around for so long. You don't see what this really functionally means. But what it means is you have to get out of the spaces of like expecting to influence politics in the same way that the Conservatives do. It's not possible. The only success that the NDP has had in that forum in the last 30 years has been acting like liberals. And that is not good enough. And obviously under Avi Lewis, that's not what the party wants to do or wants to look like. But we lack the spaces to have these discussions, and we certainly lack mainstream spaces to have these discussions. This should be the big red flag. Like, the NDP has been marginalized, full stop. And no number of NDP pundits pretending to like represent the left is going to change that fact. Lewis still has access to these tribunes, which is really important. But the fact that pretty much no one else does, unless they work for whatever strategic affairs company they work for, is a devastation to what anyone hopes on the left could be their success through formal politics. And we've got to wrap our heads around that and actually come up with a path forward for then, okay, if this is a path that's now closed, what is the new path that needs to be forged?